So Trump has been waging war on NYC's congestion pricing program, and I'll give my thoughts briefly on that. As someone who lives in NYC and has been to Manhattan several times in his life, I have no problem with the congestion pricing personally. Manhattan is a borough I avoid like the plague unless I absolutely have to go there, like for example, I was there just a few months ago in November. Just a few days before Thanksgiving on top of that. I wasn't there for fun or anything, I actually had to go somewhere that day. The traffic there has always been abysmal, and also there's the fucking tourists buzzing around all over the place, so there's another reason why I like to avoid Manhattan. But I've heard this recent policy has actually decreased traffic in Manhattan and has made it at least a little more tolerable to be in, so I'm all for that. And Trump wishes to kill this policy, which is essentially the federal government stepping in on what is effectively a states' rights issue. Trump claims he wants to go after New York for taking more money from working class people, but you already know Trump does not give a single shit about working class people. This is almost certainly revenge for the lawsuit that took place here in the state over him conducting business fraud. Because Trump is the king of pettiness, and speaking of the word king, this is what I want to talk about in this video. Here is a post he made on his Truth Social site. Congestion pricing is dead. It's not, it's actually still in effect. Huh? Trump lied? Imagine that. Anyway, Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. I just want to ask you, do you not find it at least a little concerning that a sitting president of a great power such as the United States is openly referring to himself as a fucking king? Oh, but he was just joking. He's not actually referring to himself as a king. This is just another attempt to own the libs. This is what is said nearly every single time Trump says something that is even just mildly concerning. He's not actually serious. He's a goofball, so you can just write off anything he says. I've even seen some people scramble to say, well, Trump isn't referring to himself as the king, but rather he's referring to New York as the king, or New Yorkers as the king. Well, shortly after Trump's Truth Social post, the official White House page on Twitter made it crystal clear what Trump was trying to convey. Here is a post that is just a quote from Trump's Truth Social post, and then you have this AI slop of Trump in a crown. The official White House page is literally depicting the sitting president as a king. Anyone who still scrambles to defend this, I want you to imagine a scenario where Biden is still in office, or Kamala won the 2024 election, and they were posting images of themselves in crowns. And they were proclaiming, I'm the king, or I'm the queen. You would have Trump supporters and Republican officials screaming from the rooftops that we have an authoritarian in office and demanding for their removal. But since it's Trump, the dude known for being brash and ridiculous, this just seems to be shrugged off by most people. I mean, credit where credit is due, I did look at the replies under the White House tweet, and even the blue checks in the replies were like, what the fuck is this? So I can't say that everyone doesn't find this at least a little concerning. But I'm just tired of this attitude that we can't take anything Trump says seriously because he's just a dope and he's just joking. The dude literally signed an executive order the other day that would give unprecedented power to the executive branch. He would be able to interpret laws made for the executive branch. The executive order also includes bypassing Congress and giving the White House control over government entities that were previously independent from the White House's control. There's also a Trump tweet from the other day that quotes Napoleon, and it's actually disputed whether or not Napoleon actually said this, but anyway, he who saves his country does not violate any law. Which is basically him saying, I am above the law, but dressing it up as, I am above the law because I am serving the people. And you take all of this into account and you factor in his convicted felon status having no effect on the outcome of the election. Is it really any surprise that the dude feels like a king? I don't think anyone has ever dodged accountability as much as Donald Trump has. You can say I'm being alarmist and I don't fucking care. At this point, if you can't see the writing on the wall that this dude is an authoritarian, I just can't take you seriously. I don't want to get too much into the patriotic shit because, quite frankly, I'm not a very patriotic person, but this country was literally founded on breaking away and establishing independence from a king. Our founding fathers, for as much as they were slave-owning pieces of shit, established the principle that in order for this country to be a sovereign nation, it needs a government and government officials who do not have absolute power power and can be held accountable if needed. And we are so far removed from that principle. And as a consequence, we now have a president who is saying he is above the law, consolidating more and more power for himself, and referring to himself as a fucking king. If you don't want to take any of this seriously, then that's your prerogative. I think it's extremely misguided, but again, your prerogative. But just know that your constant shrugging off of his statements and actions, and your sane washing of him, is part of what led him to be in a position where he is comfortable enough to rip the mask off and say, yeah, I have absolute power, the law doesn't apply to me. And again, if this were a Democrat saying things that were even half as brazen as this, I doubt you would have the same attitude. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.